Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get-started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Welcome to Think About It with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day and welcome to Think About It with Jaden Miller. I'm your host, Jaden Miller. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode. Before I get into what my discussion is for today, please remember to like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Think About It with Jaden Miller. And also like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. You guys hear me say this all the time. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcast, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and so many more. And so I appreciate you guys' support and for following and for listening. You can also learn more about me and my podcast. And, I'm a professional photographer as well. You can find out more on my website. That is www.jadenmiller.com. Jaden is JAYDEN MILLER, JadenMiller.com. All right, well, let's get into this. President Biden last week announced Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson as his Supreme Court nominee to replace Justice Stephen Breyer. In 2020, 160 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, we are on the verge of having our first Black female associate justice. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is extraordinarily accomplished and should be on any president's list of highly qualified, exemplary high court candidates, not because of her gender or race, but because of her resume and her qualifications. Judge Brown Jackson currently serves as a judge on the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. This follows her 8 years of experience as a trial court judge in the United States District Court in D.C., years of work in private practice, and 15 years as a public defender. She graduated from Harvard Law School, where she served as an editor for the Harvard Law Review, clerked for 3 judges, one of whom was Justice Stephen Breyer, and was vice chair of the United States Sentencing Commission. As is befitting of a United States Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brown Jackson has issued notable rulings in a substantively and legalistically broad range of cases. All right, well, let's think about this for a minute. Well, for decades, presidents didn't have to say much about their Supreme Court nominees. Their pedigree, race, and gender was assured. It would be a white man. In the last century, that mold was broken by legendary justices like Thurgood Marshall, the first Black man to serve on the court, and Sandra Day O'Connor, its first woman. Their presence on the court, jurisprudence aside, made the court look more like the America it works for. Ketanji Brown Jackson, if confirmed, will equally be historic. Okay? Diversity enhances the court's credibility in the eyes of the public. This nomination and this nominee couldn't have come at a more important time. There's been no lack of comment lately on the public's diminishing confidence in the Supreme Court, one of the cornerstone institutions of our democracy. And to be fair to history, there's always been tension between the court's role as a neutral arbiter of contentious issues, the so-called umpire of the legal playing field, and its perceived participation in the politics of the day. Just ask Supreme Court Justice Thomas's wife, who seems to be involved in a lot of politics, dragging him into it as well. Those concerns are now acute, particularly in light of Merrick Garland's failed judicial nomination and the successful Republican maneuvering that permitted the last president to stack the court with 3 justices of his choosing. The court is charged with deciding contentious, difficult issues that Americans can't settle in any other dispute resolution mechanism in our society. The court decides high-profile issues like abortion and voting rights, but it is also charged with defining criminal conduct, the rights of suspects, how business is conducted, and how much power the federal government has. And the court doesn't have an army to enforce its decisions. It relies on the public's willingness to abide by them. It only has the power to make and enforce its decisions because we are willing to give that court authority. All right. The issue of flagging confidence in the court isn't just a matter of public opinion polls and justices' popularity. It's a matter of significance for the future of the country at a time when our institutions are stretched bone thin and the public confidence in them is at epic lows. So it makes sense that a presidential administration that says it is committed to restoring America's institutions would make the commitment real. All right. Well, we all know that Judge Jackson is highly qualified, and we should expect no less. So what happens is people still today, in 2022, look at a person's skin color, look at a person's gender, and then make these stupid decisions on whether or not this person is qualified. Losing my voice. And what's really funny about it is that people who make these pronouncements, all right, are usually those that lack any kind of educational background or qualifications themselves, all right, to even be able to come up with an educated reason why this person isn't qualified. It's simply because, it's a woman, or because this person is black. And because this person is black, that automatically means that they are less than, okay? So even though Judge Jackson has a Harvard degree, a law degree, okay, somebody that just barely went to high school, or just barely graduated from high school, or has a limited function in terms of brain function, all right, can say ugly things about this nomination, which is just horrible, all right? But let's take a look at Judge Jackson, all right? President Biden did not select her for her partisanship. Judge Jackson has more years of experience on the bench than most of the nominees who preceded her. But it's what she did in the years before she became a judge that underscores her suitability for the court and her worthiness for bipartisan confirmation. All right. For one, she would be the first justice since Thurgood Marshall to have experience as a criminal defense lawyer. She worked in the public defender's office in the District of Columbia and is familiar with the defense perspective, a tremendous addition for a court that today includes only former prosecutors. She has a close family member who was sentenced to life in prison for a nonviolent cocaine conviction, but she also has an uncle who served as Miami's police chief, as well as a brother and another uncle who were police officers. She herself served on the United States Sentencing Commission. And it may be the last facet of her experience that brings the great value to the court. Her work with the Sentencing Commission, which shepherds the guidelines used by federal judges in criminal cases, gives her unique insight into some of the most important and complex criminal justice issues the court is likely to face during her potential tenure, because they involve when, for how long, and under what conditions people can be incarcerated. The fact that she is or was a former defense attorney, a former federal defense attorney, should not be looked down upon, okay? Well, if we look back at the history of this country, all right, well, our Bill of Rights defends our rights as citizens. All right. We have a Fourth Amendment, all right, that protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures. All right. That defends us against the government. There's a defense there. Our founding fathers wanted to make sure that we had a defense mechanism set up to protect us against government agent intrusion. All right. For those of you that need a little history lesson, go back and Google the conflict between the colonies, the 13 original colonies, and Great Britain. Or read the letter Thomas Jefferson wrote to the world seeking assistance against a tyrant. It was called the Declaration of Independence. All right. So the fact that she was a defendant is a defense attorney rather is a great thing. All right. It's a monumental thing. All right. Because she can see issues not just from one side, but she can see it from another side. That keeps her balanced, that keeps her unbiased. All right. That's so important. Judge Jackson deserves a respectful confirmation process, and the country does too. It should be nothing like that shameful debacle where Republican senators declined to meet with Judge Merrick Garland, let alone bring him up for a vote. That, and I say this very often, I'm independent, so I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, so I'm not for either side. I vote my conscience. I vote what I believe is right. Okay. But then I also can speak against Republicans when the Republicans or the conservatives do wrong, which they do often, and the Democrats, okay, when they do stuff wrong, which they do often. All right. So if we're going to be fair, let's look at that Republican charade, okay, when President Obama brought forth Merrick Garland, okay. All right. And this just goes to show the silliness in Congress, specifically the United States Senate, okay. All right. Because you're not playing fair. And you put that out there for the world to see how the Republicans did Judge Merrick Garland. But then when it was their turn, when Donald Trump brought forth the nominee, they were all for that. Just so hypocritical. All right. But after that charade, the Senate must demonstrate that it too appreciates the court's function and is willing to play its constitutional role in naming justices of both parties. All right. So it will also be important to Joe Biden, given his time leading the Senate Judiciary Committee, that the process be bipartisan. All right. I'm hoping that those Republican senators don't or not vote for her just because they have this sense that she's a liberal justice, or because a liberal or Democratic president is selecting her. That would not be cool. All right. The Constitution only permits the president to name a new justice with the advice and consent of the Senate, and it's clear Joe Biden takes that condition seriously. He has already tapped former Alabama Senator Doug Jones, a moderate who worked well on both sides of the aisle, to introduce the nominee to senators of both parties. Justice Brown Jackson received 3 votes from Republican senators when she was confirmed in 2021. There is no reason that number should not increase given her consistent performance since then. She is the type of judge whose commitment to the rule of law should give all lawmakers confidence that she will execute her constitutional role with diligence. That's what we want in the federal judiciary. So, knowing this, her nomination is not going to change the makeup of the court. All right. So currently you have 3 so-called liberal justices and 6 so-called conservative justices. So the conservative majority is there. All right. But Jackson can become a pillar for restoring confidence in the court, both because of her personal integrity and, if it proceeds as it should, the integrity of her confirmation process. Conservatives may celebrate the new supermajority on the court, but people have to believe that when the court decides hard cases, the justices are acting as 9 neutral umpires, not as 9 political activists. Right now, many don't, and that's why confidence in the court has suffered. I don't. Okay, I don't feel that the court is unbiased and fair. Okay, I feel as though that many justices on both sides of the aisle kowtow to their political line, their political leanings, and that's not fair. All right, Jackson's confirmation process will either begin to restore the court or further damage it if the confirmation process is flawed. All right. Many people will wonder whether her potential seating on the Supreme Court will have any immediate impact in a court with an existing conservative majority. And as I just mentioned, while her potential confirmation may not alter the balance of opinion on the United States Supreme Court in the short term, her professional experience, particularly as a judge with a significant background, as I've mentioned, as a public defender, and her personal experience as a black woman in the United States will shape how she approaches cases before the court and how both majority and minority opinions will be framed and argued. And these consequences of her very presence will likely alter the parameters of public policy in the United States. Beyond the symbolic and political importance of ensuring that the High Court includes a black woman, the consequences for the parameters of public policy in the first half of the 21st century are likely to be profound. A Justice Brown Jackson will know what it is like to grow up in a community whose values have been considered subordinate to mainstream values. That's the importance of having diversity on the Supreme Court. She will know what it is like to be entangled in a criminal justice system that at every turn, from racial profiling to unvalidated theories of excited delirium to jury selection, and in some places, the use of non-unanimous juries means to indigent and or people of color who have been subject to unrelenting racism and do not have the resources to engage in legal maneuvering to clear their names. All right. She will understand that. She will know how that is. She will know how hard black women work to keep families afloat, and that black and brown people in the United States continually have to prove their value. Those insights will influence the nuances of her legal theories and the ways in which her colleagues on the High Court engage with those theories, whether she is in the majority or the minority. So instead of us focusing so much on the fact that Joe Biden committed a few years ago when he was running to select an African American justice for the Supreme Court, instead of focusing on that, why not focus on her excellent qualifications? Because she's certainly much more qualified than many of those people that were selected during the last round and even before, and maybe even to come. All right. So this is a celebration not for Black America. This is a celebration for all of America. Now, all we have to do is make sure that she gets the number of votes from the Senate that she should. And my hope is that her being selected by the Senate and elevated to the United States Supreme Court will come with bipartisan support, because that's what America needs now. It needs to see that members of the Senate from both sides of the aisle can come together and make sure that this accomplished woman gets the seat on the United States Supreme Court, and it is based on her qualifications and not based on some rhetoric about her politics. All right, this is Think About It with Jaden Miller. I hope you guys think about all of those things that I just said. Again, please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Check out my website at www.jaden.miller.com and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. All right. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is the topic for today. And our hope is that she gets elevated to the United States Supreme Court by a bipartisan vote of United States senators. All right. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.